Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
Good morning. We're in the 8 o'clock hour. Wilson, Neiman, and Ham all in the house today. And we've been talking about this train that seems to be leaving the station over in the Senate. The Gang of Six is back together again. They're no longer the Gang of Five. Tom Coburn has joined them. And they've come up with a debt ceiling reduction plan that does include apparently some revenue enhancements. You can call those taxes if you choose, but also cuts a significant amount of money out of the budget. Now, the question is this the train leaving the station? Is this what everybody can get behind? Some signs that the Republican leadership in the House is finding it somewhat acceptable. Last hour, we talked to Representative Ron Paul about this. I think it's fair to say, guys, that he wasn't outrageously opposed to it, but wasn't endorsing the idea either. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say that if he voted against cut, cap, and balance, then he's not going to vote for this plan.
Well, let's find out what the other Paul in the Congress has to say. That's Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, is on the line right now. Well, Senator, you've got this proposal being thrown about. The president sort of finds it likable. The Republican leadership in the House finds it likable. Where does Senator Rand Paul come down on this Gang of Six proposal?
Well, there really isn't a proposal is the first problem. The only proposal on the table is the cut, cap, and balance. It's legislation. It was voted on last night and passed in the House. And this would have significant spending cuts, statutory caps, and also a balanced budget amendment, and then we would raise the debt ceiling. It's the only viable plan that I will vote for because it's the only plan that would change what we do in Washington.
But you know that's not going to go anywhere.
Well, I don't know anything. I remain an optimist. We won yesterday. We had a big rally with 130 grassroots groups before the vote last night. We met with 30 of the leaders in the House, and there really is a fervor. I mean, we believe we were elected by the American people to change the way things happen. The Gang of Six proposal never balances. I consider it a compromise that I would vote for something that takes 7 or 8 or maybe 9 or 10 years to balance, but I can't vote for a proposal that never balances. The other problem with their proposal is they talk about cutting $3 trillion. Well, that's really the wrong word. The baseline adds $9 trillion. So if you cut $3 trillion, you're really adding $6 trillion to the debt over the next several years.
Well, Senator, I think there are many people, me included, who would love to see the legislation that passed the House of Representatives yesterday become the law of the land. But there are political realities in this town. And the political reality is this has zero chance of passing the United States Senate. And even if it got through the House and the Senate, the president says he's going to veto. So this is a non-starter, isn't it?
Here's what I would say is August 2nd, it may have zero chance. September 2nd, it might have a 50% chance. And October 2nd, it might have a 75% chance. The governor of Minnesota finally capitulated to the Republican budget just recently. He said he didn't like it, and he finally said shutting down the government was worse. What we need to convince the American people is that this is about the president not allowing a balanced budget. This is about the president spending money we don't have. And if we make it a clear-cut decision between the president continuing things as usual and the president not sending out checks on Social Security, the president not writing checks to pay for the interest, then I think we win that battle. But it only happens if you have the fortitude and the guts to say no more, our government's broke, we're not going to take it anymore.
Well, and some of the recent polling, Senator, shows that perhaps Republicans are not winning the PR battle on this, even though to me the message is clear. How do you prevent that going forward, especially if something like a government shutdown comes about and the press inevitably is going to say, well, this is the GOP's fault?
I think we weren't winning the battle because we had no plan, but we now have a plan that's on the table. We had to fight like cats and dogs to get cut, cap, and balance to come forward. We overcame great obstacles. This came from freshmen in the House and freshmen in the Senate, and we overcame great obstacles to get this on the table, but we need to fight for something. It needs to be clear what we're for. Now we've got it on the table, what we're for. And I promise you, there's 100 guys, men and women, who are newly elected over in the Senate, and over in the House, who I think will stand firm on this and think that our country is at great risk if we continue to borrow money at the way we're doing it.
What about in the Senate? I mean, will it come up for a vote in the Senate? And how many of your Republican colleagues will go along with it? Is a whole caucus on board with cut, cap, and balance?
I think so, actually. I think we've got, I think the count yesterday was 44 and three wavering. And whether or not we get Democrats to come on board. See, the thing is the only way you ever have any leverage, everybody around here has been wilting on this thing for a month, and they say, oh, our leverage decreases as we approach August 2nd. I sort of agree, but then I say your leverage increases every day after August 2nd. And if there is a problem or a disruption in the marketplace, you say the only reason this happened is because the president refused to lead. He refused to pay the checks, to pay the interest on the debt. We bring in $200 billion a month. Our interest payment's $20 billion. He should take default off the table. He should take Social Security checks off the table, and he should take soldiers' salaries off the table. In fact, we have a bill that instructs him to do so.
But even if he does that, you still could have major problems with the economy. I mean, you could still have interest rates go up. You could have the dollar going down tremendously.
Not if you had a president who, for the last month or two, had been saying that we will not default. I will pay the interest, and we'll come to an agreement. That would be the leadership we need, and we don't have that president. So if there is a problem with the default, it's entirely on the president's shoulders because he has the ability to continue to write checks for the rest of time. We have plenty of revenue to pay our interest.
Senator, I remember another president that many Republicans greatly admire. His name was Ronald Reagan. I was here for his second term in office when he was still the President of the United States. Ronald Reagan would stand his ground and stand his ground and stand his ground, but in the last final analysis, he was a pragmatist and he took the best deal he could get, and a lot of things got done under his leadership. Isn't it time in this country to say, okay, we fought the good fight. We stood for what we believe. We've come a long way, but there's a train leaving the station, and we ought to get the best deal we can get and move on.
I think the American people don't want us to cave. I think the American people are sick of politicians caving. I think the American people are worried about how much debt this country is incurring. I think I'm honestly worried that we could become Greece if we're not careful. And the time has come now to draw a line in the sand and to say no more. We cannot continue to give people money who are not acting wisely with it, who are not trustworthy with it, and the time has come to say no more. We have to begin balancing our budget.
Well, let me ask you a question on the cut, cap, and balance. When does it actually balance the budget?
Well, what it would require is when the amendment is passed, it allows for a 5-year window to balance the budget. It'd probably take a year or two to pass. So realistically, it's a 7 to 8 year plan. But it's a plan. If we raise the debt ceiling with no plan, all we are is a rubber stamp for more borrowing and a rubber stamp for what's always happened in this city. And what's happening in this city is destroying our country. The other thing to look at is that people who worry about not raising the debt ceiling and say it'll be a catastrophe, Moody's and S&P are talking about downgrading our debt if we raise the debt ceiling without significant budgetary reform. So really there's a danger either way, and there is a danger to the country, to the debt consuming us. If we do nothing on our spending, within about a decade, spending on entitlements and interest will occupy and consume the whole budget. We are headed towards disaster, much of this based on the demographics of an aging society with fewer workers, more retirees, and people living longer. And we have to fix that. The longer we wait on Social Security, the longer we wait on entitlements. I just personally, I don't mind if I get sent home for taking a stand. Somebody's got to take a stand.
All right, Senator Paul, good to have you on the program. Appreciate your time.